She wrapped the wool blanket around my legs. "Godless weather," I told her. She played along. We both knew Canadian January didn't cause the shivers plaguing my body. I was cold, sure, but all the time. Ever since last summer, a scorcher, and the doc told me how much time I had left. I remember nodding and recalling the words my granddad said when he found out he was dying. "I had a pretty good kick at the can." That's what he'd said, so I did the same, and Hannah started crying. I didn't want to die. I made that clear to her, but she didn't buy it. "You sounded relieved when he told you," she said. I'd been so careful, I thought, not to let my depression seep into my expression. "The day you retired," she went on, "was when everything changed." In the car on the way home, we'd argued. I lost. Hannah still had all her wits and senses. She exercised and ate well. Plus, she hadn't crossed 50 yet. On my next birthday, 6 months away, I'd be 70 and most likely dead. The age difference hadn't been a big deal when we first met 15 years ago. I'd been an entirely different man, energetic and passionate, especially about my job. She didn't mind that I talked about it constantly or that I always seemed to be working. I'd been too old for kids, and she didn't want any. We were perfect together. Retirement hits guys like me hard. That's what I'd been told at a union seminar. I should have listened. Gone to therapy, picked up a new hobby, continued drinking heavily. Instead, I got up every morning at 6 a.m. and read the paper front to back. Then I'd stare out the window for a while. I tried to read or watch movies, but nothing compared to the complexity and challenge of a case. Frustrated by my listlessness and figurative flailing, Hannah suggested I look back at the one case I'd never solved. The Black Ballooner. A stupid name some hack at the Bridal Veil Herald came up with. The Black Ballooner had earned his unfortunate moniker by, you guessed it, leaving black balloons tied to his victims. Each one had a blurry message written in chalk, usually simple words like help. The last one, found in 1980, gave a partial license plate, which turned out to be from a station wagon belonging to the victim. Why write down your own plate? It didn't make sense. There are easier ways to identify yourself, and the car didn't seem to have any connection to her abduction and murder. Hannah brought me the paper. She didn't always get up at the same time as me. I had mixed feelings about the blanket wrap and her treating me like an invalid on such days. I wasn't happier when she didn't accompany me in the early morning. I was irked like a wounded dog forced to wear a cone so it won't chew on its own damage. I wanted to mull over my unhappiness. Then, I read it. Black balloon found on victim. Front page news. I couldn't believe it. He'd have to be within a stone's throw of my age. The victim, another young lady just living her life, gets picked up and drugged and driven to who knows where. She's kept in isolation, starved. Then he gives her the black balloon and a piece of chalk. He tells her to write anything she wants. The phone rang. Yes, we still had a landline. Hannah's face soured after saying hello. Huh? She hung up. Eddie's on his way. His name left a bad taste in her mouth. The doorbell rang frantically, and she sighed. Correction, he's already here. The man she let in beamed with youthful enthusiasm, despite the cane he needed to get around. He held an already battered copy of the same newspaper on my blanketed lap. "Thanks for calling ahead, Eddie," Hannah said sarcastically. He winked at her. "That's a lovely gown you're wearing, Mrs. Cleaver." Hannah scowled. "See, we only called Ray Haskell Eddie because of a really old TV show, Leave It to Beaver. Eddie Haskell is a scheming teenager that always gets the other kids in trouble. Since our Haskell always seemed to be onto something too, me and the other detectives started calling him Eddie. Ray liked it, so it stuck, and eventually earned me my own complimentary nickname. We were frequent case partners, after all, and that included the Black Ballooner. Wally, Eddie's best friend and the son of the Cleavers. "Morning, Wallace," he said, strutting to the couch as much as one can with a limp. "See anything interesting in today's paper?" I rolled my eyes and did my best to suppress my own excitement. He was back. How could he be back? It couldn't be. The Jays are looking to Japan for more talent. Should have a good shot at the series next season. "Good observation, really," he said, taking a seat on the arm of the recliner and cupping his chin thoughtfully. I felt guilty. How pathetic are we? He frowned. "Hey? Taking joy in this sicko's return?" Eddie shrugged. "It can't really be him, Wally. He'd be around our age. And look at us. Falling apart." "Copycat?" I asked. "Gotta be." He didn't sound convinced. I rattled the paper and brought the article in question close to my face. Eddie had caught a detail I'd somehow missed. That got my blood going. As a team, we each had our respective talents. He was the effective con man, the talker. I observed. I put things together. Anytime he saw something I'd overlooked, he never let it go, holding it over my head until I did him a favor. Could be as simple as buying him lunch. It could be as train-wrecking as asking the secretary for a date on his behalf. That hadn't ended well. They'd gotten married. Lindsay, God rest her soul, had never forgiven me for that introduction. Nothing. I hadn't missed anything in the paper, which meant there was some other thing causing his good mood. "What did you do, Eddie?" He answered with a maximum shit-eating grin. "Eddie," Hannah cautioned, "not too much excitement, okay?" The whispered way she said it, like I was a kid who didn't know his mom was talking about him, embarrassed me. I cleared my throat and fought with the blanket wrap, which spilled the folded newspaper onto the floor. Hannah rushed to retrieve it. The headline stopped her cold. "You've got to be kidding." Her eyes tore through the article while her mouth remained ajar. "It can't be." Hannah looked up at me. "It's not the same guy, right?" I shrugged. Eddie let out a big, "Eddie," she seethed. "Is this why you rushed over?" He pretended to pick at something on the palm of his hand. "Of course not. I came to see young Wallace. Word's getting around he's gone soft in his retirement. I can see why. Look at this pampered lifestyle." My turn to sneer at him. "Shut up, Eddie. Cough it up. I don't have all day." "Shut up. Cough up. Make up your mind. Ed." The short form of his nickname let him know I'd had enough of the annoying shtick. Okay. I called Grant this morning." "You did?" Grant McKay had stubbornly refused to retire. He was older than Eddie and I, and had a troubling gambling addiction. He needed work to fuel it. Eddie could stomach going to the casino with him from time to time. Being in the same vicinity with Grant made my skin crawl. He often stank of sweat and cigarettes because he'd play all night and come straight to the department. He said there's stuff at the scene, Wall. Unreleased info. I gripped the arms of the recliner like I might fall out of the chair. The shoes? Eddie nodded and extended his hand. Come on, Wallace. Grant asked the inspector to let us check it out. They're holding down the scene, waiting for us. Hannah grabbed Eddie gently by the shoulders and pushed him a step back. I don't think so, Haskell. Aw, Hannah, come on. They need us. It's looking like the real deal. The footprints are really unique. A copycat wouldn't know that. And the chances there's two guys with the same... She jammed a finger into his chest. You're trying to get him killed. The accusation struck a blow against Eddie's energetic facade. He stopped smiling and looked away from Hannah. It isn't like that, he said. They really could use our help. We spent the most time on the case. A lot of the old evidence is rotted away and gone, and only we remember it. Hannah sighed. I could tell she regretted yelling at Eddie. He'd been my best friend for most of my life. Where all the others had stopped visiting after hearing about my impending death, Eddie stayed true, and didn't express an ounce of pity. So you're dying, he'd said. We all are. Think you're special or something? Or are you trying to get out of that 20 I spotted you in 82? I remember smiling for the first time since my prognosis. I spotted you. Huh. I'm good for it. How much time you got again? I burst out laughing, and Hannah rushed into the living room, probably to see a glimpse of the happy man she'd married. She looked at me now with clear apprehension. I should just die already, I thought, so she can stop worrying about me. You did say I should look at this case again, I reminded her. I meant look at some files, she countered, not run off to a murder scene. Finally, the blanket released its stranglehold. A young woman is dead. If I can help, I have to go. Hannah's embrace hurt. I didn't let on. We hadn't had much physical contact lately. My fault. She cupped my cheek, and I savored the warmth of her skin. At least don't go in your pajamas. It felt strange to wear anything else. Plus, I hadn't been outside in days. Dark gray skies were too bright for my eyes. Supposed to rain or snow? I asked Eddie while we hobbled off the porch together. A bit of both, he answered. Don't you old guys obsess about the weather? Eddie groaned when his next footfall crunched ice. Damn, this isn't fair. You're the one dying, but I get the cane. I chuckled. Not my fault you thought you could still play tag with your grandkids. I played fine. It was that playground gravel. I dug in to dodge little Camille and snap. Muscles tore all up my calf. Ah, the pain. He opened the door of his ancient steel Thunderbird. A beast of a car that had no business being in operation in the 21st century. If he ever got into an accident, this behemoth would slice the other vehicle like a cleaver through bread. Eddie, I told him, I know the story. You tell me all the time. And then I tell you. Remember when you got shot? The leg was worse, he complained. Remember Goodwin? The constable who shot me? I laughed. Goodwin, what happened to him? He retired 3 years ago. His son just had another grandkid. Nice guy. Of course, Eddie stayed in contact with the man who mistook him, a detective, for a suspect on the scene. That's what you do all day? I asked. Make the rounds on acquaintances? He smiled. I'm a man of the people, Wally. Always have been. But you're pretty chit-chatty yourself for a guy at death's door. Getting cold feet? The days of seeing grisly murder scenes were supposed to be over. To summon up the clinical, impartial attitude seemed impossible. I'd been allowed to drink, and drink heavily, to numb those feelings and sleep at night. On the other hand, the urge to do something, to find the bastard that had evaded us for so long, sat like the last ember in a hearth full of ashes. The right fuel would reignite it into flame again. Get in the car, Ed. Where we were going exactly, Eddie didn't say. He didn't have to. The Black Ballooner used the gorge for a dumping ground. Miles of forest, and sometimes the Black River itself, could hide and consume evidence at a rapid pace. A jogging path along the river made it easy to descend the steep hills and find a cozy spot. Homeless encampments had been common in the woods even in the 70s, and Eddie and I had some good contacts there. None of them, however, ever saw the Black Ballooner dump a victim. I believed that meant he had some skill at woodcraft and stealth. A lot of the homeless, shamefully, were veterans. Canada had never officially entered the Vietnam War, yet over 30,000 Canadian soldiers volunteered anyway. They faced a hard road when they returned, and, just like our neighbors to the south, Canada failed to care for these young men. It wasn't hard to imagine some disenfranchised and mentally ill soldier with Spec Ops training as the killer. The Black Balloon itself might have been a symbolic demonstration too. He filled it up with ordinary air and let it drift around public places. Yet, no one ever seemed to pick them up or report the messages to police. Not even after the media released this detail to the public. Society, he might have been demonstrating, did not care. The city salted the pathway. A fine layer of snow had been pounded into brown slush by winter joggers. Amidst the melting sneaker treads were the plain boot prints I'd encountered more than 40 years ago. Size 9 on the left, size 12 on the right. He'd already been killing for a while. I'd been looking for him. But winters were far colder back then. The dirt froze solid, and stayed that way until spring or early summer. But he couldn't help himself. Snow hides evidence. Rain washes it away. Unless you're big and marching your heavy boots in the mud with a corpse over your shoulder. You see it, Ed? He held onto my arm firmly. I see that I'm about to fall on my ass. Look down. I stopped him from stepping into the slush print. He tried to squat to get a better look, but gave up the feat immediately with a tiny, "Oh, my back." Well, he nodded. 9 and 12. Clear as day. We never found a set so close to a public entrance, I said, hearing my excitement. How far are we from the scene? Not far. He pointed to the next bridge crossing the gorge. I squinted real hard and saw some movement. Huh. Your face is gonna stay like that if you keep it up, Eddie joked before stepping over the slush print carefully. Since you can't see far, and I'm about to fall over, you watch the ground and hold me up. And I'll let you know when the young constables start whispering shit about the two old bastards coming to give their outdated opinions. I nodded. Deal. Our slow progress along the paved path edge of the Black River made it easy to spot more identical prints and the discrepancy of his gait. The length of the stride is different, Ed. It's much shorter. We put his height at over 6 feet. But look, the distance between prints is too short. Eddie didn't even look down. Uh-huh. And look at us. We're walking like turtles. It's been half a century for him, too. Of course his stride is pathetically shortened. Again, I despised it when I missed something Eddie got. His theory made sense. If the ballooner was as hobbled as us, though, then hauling a body would be incredibly difficult. Instead of police tape, the detective sergeant had posted 3 constables on either side of the overpass. These bridges over the gorge were poorly thought out. The architecture below included a half-dozen alcoves filled with shadows. Hard to understand what the designer had intended with these spaces. Romance? Seclusion helps with that. Helps with murder, too. The odor hit me hard. So familiar. So awful. Bloody copper and rotted meat. Cold weather should have preserved the flesh better. She was killed, but not moved for days. "Franzel!" Eddie called to the young detective sergeant, a man with bloodshot eyes and a toque bearing the logo of U of T. The constables parted to allow their boss to exit. Each step he took left faint traces of blood. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for allowing us to," Eddie replied. "We've wanted to find this bastard for a long time." "Yeah." Detective Sergeant Franzel Luke looked at me. He saw that I watched. He knew what I saw. "It's different," he said. "It's off. Based on what I read, the MO isn't quite the same." I nodded. "Too much blood. Wounds were inflicted here. That's very different. Post-mortem," Franzel added. "For sure. I mean, we'll know for sure once the forensics are done." "No," I said. "You're right. These injuries would have come after death." "That hasn't always been part of the routine," Eddie said. "That's a pretty dramatic alteration. Is it not, young Wallace?" "Only if it's the same killer." Franzel scratched a shaved head beneath his toque. He couldn't have slept at all last night. Maybe longer. But that doesn't make any sense. Why go to all the trouble of copying a serial killer if you leave out the most horrible part? I couldn't suppress a smile. The torture isn't the most horrible part. It isn't? Could have fucking fooled me. The young detective tore off his toque and looked like he might throw it into the river. As always, faithful Eddie arrived to smooth over my lack of decorum. "What my colleague means is that the torture would have likely followed the black balloon message left in public. The truly horrifying thing would be the fact that the torture occurred and no one would be coming to the rescue." He shrugged. "At least, that's been our theory since the 80s. To change it up so dramatically is curious is all." I cleared my throat. "May we see the body?" "Yeah," Franzel stuttered. In addition to his exhaustion, he looked pale. "First time?" I asked him. He nodded. "First one like this." Eddie took him by the shoulder. "It's okay. Wally will look." From his coat pocket, he produced a silver flask and gave it to Franzel. The young man did not decline. He didn't even hesitate. I went into the shadows beneath the overpass. She'd been left in the first alcove, her back against the wall. If not for all the blood, she would have easily been mistaken for a junkie. That had been the intention of the original Black Balloon murders. Propping them up made potential passerby go the other way, walk a little faster. The final insult, really. Nobody would stop for a strung-out addict. When enough days had passed and the body decayed, then, and only then, would someone finally call the police. The amount of time between the dumping and the discovery meant evidence degraded significantly. After 6 bodies were found, with many more likely never discovered, we knew very little about the ballooner, except his unusual shoe sizes and his preferred targets. Young women in their 20s or early 30s, generally attractive, but more often than not, poor. I theorized the financial circumstances of the victims were meant to enrage the lower classes. It was the affluent and powerful that ignored the messages on the balloons, after all. That didn't really explain the torture of the victim. I will not recount in detail the methods used to terrify and harm these young women. They were various and cruel, deviant and sadistic. Had these women somehow survived their ordeals, they would have never fully recovered, physically or mentally. I turned on my flashlight. The pale, bloodless face of the girl looked altogether wrong from the get-go. Too young. Way too young. This girl couldn't be over 15. She hadn't fully grown into her developing body. So small. So very, very small. I'm so sorry, I told her. If her ghost lingered nearby, I just really needed to let her know how sorry I was. I didn't catch him. I didn't even get close. I sat on the wet tarmac and felt the water soak into my trouser bottoms instantly. He stopped by the late 80s. Slowed down before that. I thought maybe it's because nobody got the messages he was trying to convey. So he stopped. But now you're here. And I know. The message was only a rationale for the hatred he felt for you. Beautiful child. I'm so sorry. Eddie cleared his throat. All set there, Hamlet? Look at her, Ed. Look at her. Tell me what you see. He turned on his flashlight and squinted. Whoa. She's a kid. I nodded. Yep. You know why? Eddie took a deep breath and held it, like I might splash him with river water. Because he's old, Ed. Old like us. We struggled down the path. So did he. He had zero faith in his ability to overpower an adult again. And to carry one? No way. He needed someone smaller. That son of a bitch. Eddie spat. And the post-mortem wounds instead of torture? I shook my head. Same thing. He probably surprised her and killed her fast. It's not what he prefers. But the way he used to capture his victims probably relied on brute force. Now that's gone, so he opts for something swift and clean. Gun? Ask Franzel if anyone's touched the body yet. Ask for gloves. Eddie rolled his eyes. Nothing ever changes. Why not ask him yourself? I looked at the girl again. I don't think I made a very good impression. You think he doesn't like you? Eddie laughed through his nose. How could anyone not like you, Wally? Before I could think of anything to say, he went off to the detective with my request. No one had touched the girl. She'd been here for more than 24 hours. I'm not sure why, and I didn't want to ask Franzel. It would have made sense to wait if they wanted our expert opinions before anything got moved. But Eddie called them. The girl had yet to be identified. Bridal Veil Lake is a tourist town on the U.S. border. People went missing all the time. Organized crime had been a major presence when Eddie and I rolled. I'm sure they still existed, but the news only reported nameless human trafficking operations and drug dealers with no concept of size or sophistication. Carefully, Eddie and I leaned her head forward slightly. A bullet to the base of her skull caused immediate death. There didn't seem to be an exit wound. The cuts from a knife seemed random. He might have shaky hands now, I said. How's that? Franzel asked. I stood up and moved away, trying to retrace my steps backwards. He cut more carefully, almost in patterns before. These injuries are sloppy. He might be frustrated he couldn't do it the old way. He lacks the strength to express his rage. Shaky, often shallow attacks is all he can manage. Eddie shook his head and took a pull from his flask. Franzel looked mildly impressed. What about the balloon? I hadn't forgotten about it. In the scheme of things, it just wasn't that important. We'd never traced them to any one place. No party shops remembered selling black balloons exclusively to anyone. And the girl's message on this one, "Help me, please God," was just as sad and futile as all the rest. I shook my head. Stake out the gorge. 2 constables in the brush near accesses and overpasses. Patrols should be on the lookout for black balloons in public places. He's slower now. Someone might see him drop off the balloon, even take a picture. He came in the same way we did, too, which is new. One reason he was so difficult to catch before was that he could come and go anywhere through the forest. I walked past Franzel without waiting for his reply. "Whoa, hey, where are you going?" he asked. "Better just to follow Wally when he gets going," Eddie advised. "He hates wasting time on unnecessary talk." No point in refuting the truth, and I had no sympathy for those who put their egos ahead of the lives of potential victims. "We have public cameras everywhere," Franzel called after us, like it mattered. Let's see a camera leap from its perch and take down this son of a bitch. "But seriously," Eddie said once we'd made the pathetically difficult journey up the jogging path, "where are we going?" "Outlet Mall," I said confidently. Too confident. Because Eddie just laughed. "Been closed for 8 years. Malls are dead, you old fossil." Oh. I had to think. "Tour Hill?" He sighed. "Maybe they'll rent us some electric scooters." Tour Hill hadn't changed all that much. It still had the wax museum and a few haunted houses. A giant Ferris wheel spun in the midst of hotels, casinos, restaurants, new and old. The hill itself ran fairly straight to the lake, and the waterfall on the other side, where the U.S. tourist destinations were quieter and more reserved. We started at the top. All of the wide sidewalks had been meticulously salted and shoveled. Tourists from all over the world ebbed and flowed from building to building. Families on vacation had little interest in local affairs. A balloon, no matter the color, wouldn't be significant. The assumption that it had blown errant from some kitschy attraction would be reasonable. Did the ballooner not understand that? Or was it the point? Laser tag, lights, and mini-golf are all it takes for people to lose their awareness of potential tragedies. Must be nice. That's all I see. All I've ever seen. Sickeningly, all I've ever wanted to see. Eddie noticed my quiet. "You still there, Wally?" I smiled. "Yeah." "Okay, now." I grabbed his forearm. "There!" He followed the invisible trail from the tip of my index finger to a parking lot, within the enclave of the sagging, pink Grand Motel. The half-inflated balloon flitted across the cracked tarmac. A curtain in a window on the second floor swung violently as it shut. From his coat, Eddie produced 2 Smith & Wessons and immediately handed one to me. "Let's go." I didn't hesitate. We should have called Franzel first. I knew it, but didn't care. The person in that room might be nobody, and the curtain shifting meaningless. My gut said otherwise, and soon became a feeling of such immense anger that I couldn't speak or think beyond kicking down that door. We rushed up the steps with surprising speed. I felt light and energized. Strong. One more time. I wasn't religious, but I knew the story of Samson. He'd been blinded and tied to pillars, his great strength gone. One more time, he'd asked God, and the old man had given it to him. Enough to pull down the pillars and the roof, killing his tormentors and himself in the process. One more time. Please. Please, God. Eddie turned the retro handle. It wasn't locked. The door opened on a room with one made bed and a desk littered with newspaper clippings and more. Far more. Case files. Old ones. Mine and Eddie's had been organized in a neat pile. Only a cop would be able to gain access to all this. The ballooner had been a goddamn cop the whole time. The bathroom door was shut. "Come out with your hands raised," Eddie shouted. No answer. "It's over," he added next. In the past, I might have told him to take the bastard alive because another balloon had just been placed, which meant a woman was being held captive somewhere. Only the ballooner would know that location. He struggled with the bathroom window. We couldn't let him escape. I went first, shouldering the door, and it happened so fast. They wore all black, just like I'd imagined, but thought unlikely, and they were much smaller. Within black-gloved hands, I thought I saw a weapon. Maybe I wanted there to be one. God, please, God, help me. I fired, and Hannah cried out. She collapsed against the toilet and smiled. God, she smiled when she saw me. I had no words. Eddie pushed me aside and ran to her aid. "Call 911. I didn't move. "Damn it, Wally. Do it." Hannah gently pushed the back of her hand against Eddie's shoulder. He gave way, and she beckoned me closer. In shallow breaths, she whispered her final words. "I had to. You're dying, but look at you. Look at you now." She gasped. Her eyes closed. My wife died in my arms. Eddie called 911. Eddie explained what happened, what we found. Franzel eventually showed up and sat down on the motel bed beside me. I held the shoes, cheap men's sneakers, size 9 and 12, in my hands. It didn't take him long to figure out what she'd done. I could have told him. Saved him the trouble. I told her everything. Everything about the case. She knew everything I did. But it hadn't been enough. She had friends at the BVL police. Lots of friends. For her to get the files hadn't been too difficult, though highly improper and against the law. My husband is dying. He'd like to look at the Black Ballooner case one more time, if that's okay. He's certain he's still out there. He thinks he'll kill again. They'd handed it all over willingly. And when the newspaper confirmed it as true, well, then Eddie's phone call was well received by Grant and the detective assigned to the case. She's my wife, damn it. Franzel didn't answer. He appeared confused and sad, but refrained from asking what the hell had occurred and why she'd done any of this. I thought of the small victim, the easy access dump site. The girl had to be small because Hannah was small. The wounds were post-mortem because she had no interest in torture or suffering, and she took the jogging path instead of the dense forest because she had no knowledge of the gorge and its erratic geography. She didn't want to do this at all. Had she? No. She felt she had to. For my sake. Hannah had left a note in her purse about the next victim. There wasn't one. She couldn't bear, she wrote, to hold someone against their will. She didn't know how. Shooting an innocent person, instantly killing them, however, apparently came easy. Did I know my wife at all? Her interest in my cases now seemed troubling. Francel left. Eddie took his place. It's time to go, Wally. I couldn't move. Not even to look at him. Where? He sighed through his nostrils. To my house. We'll figure this out together. I wanted to hug him. He hugged me first. We left. We got severely drunk and fell asleep in the gaudy recliner chairs with the mini fridges built into the side of the seat. Eddie drove me to my next appointment. And there, a curious, tragic, miraculous thing happened. Dr. Abumes delivered the news stoically. We don't know why it happens. It's exceedingly rare. You're in remission. That's good, Eddie said for me, clapping my forearm. Yes, the doctor agreed. It may return. He shrugged. We have more time in any case. Maybe a decade is possible. He frowned when I didn't respond to the good news. Have there been any big changes in your life? He asked. That's an understatement, Eddie supplied, when it became evident I had no intention of speaking. I stood up. Thank you, I said to the doctor. You're leaving? He asked. I nodded. Yes. I have something to do. 10 years should be plenty. Well, now, it might not be that much. Any time will be enough. I could sense Eddie rolling his eyes over my dramatic exit. He confronted me in the parking lot. What gives, Wallace? What was that all about? She gave me extra time, Eddie. She wanted me to live. I don't know if it was love. Was she capable of love? But she wanted me to keep going. I don't think this is the end. She's crazy. She was crazy. Enough to kill without a second thought. What if there's more? Eddie's smile was tinged with sadness and curiosity, and while I found it inappropriate, I couldn't judge him because I also smiled on the inside. What are you saying? We're not done, Eddie. We need to know what else she did. Who else might have been hurt? I started walking to the car. Eddie hummed a tune while we drove. I didn't recognize it, but it sounded like a dirge. For Hannah, for the real black ballooner, we were coming for them all. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.